Welcome to the weekend edition of the Fast Five by Fear and Greed. I'm Michael Thompson, and hello, Sean Aylmer.
Hello, Michael.
Sean, on weekdays, it's all about the Fast Five, the top 5 business stories in 5 minutes. On the weekend, of course, we still keep it to 5 minutes, but we're going to pick out the biggest story of the week, the sleeper story, one that's kind of flying under the radar a little bit, the most remarkable story, and our favourite story. So let's jump into it with the biggest story of the week. What was it for you?
Oh, markets. What a wild and woolly week. Let's start in the US. Equity markets tumbled. In fact, the S&P 500 is almost 25% below its peak of late last year. Imagine investing $100,000 and looking 9 or 10 months later and you've only got $75,000. Not good. Moving across the pond to the UK to Liz Truss world. Funny world, that one. The Prime Minister of 3 weeks managed to announce possibly the most ill-received and ill-conceived tax cuts ever. What happened? The pound tumbled almost to parity with the US dollar. That has never happened. In fact, it wasn't just the pound that hated it, the whole world hated it, and global equity markets fell as a result. No better at home. The Aussie dollar fell below 64 US cents for the first time in a couple of years. The ASX S&P is back to the bad old days of COVID, 10% below its peak earlier in the year. Bonds have been sold off. Wow, what a crazy week in markets. Michael.
Yeah, sure was. Look, the biggest story for me is it kind of actually shouldn't be the biggest story anymore because it was actually from kind of 9 or 10 days ago. But every day this week's still been dominated by the Optus cyber attack. The scale of it is just so big. 10 million Australians with their details exposed, name, address, driver's license. We found out this week that there was kind of 15,000 active Medicare numbers among them all. Few big developments. The alleged hacker first released the details of 10,000 customers, threatening to release more if a ransom wasn't paid. Then all of a sudden kind of changed their mind and said they deleted the data, which is just bizarre. Then the political element of it was dialed up. Home Affairs Minister Claire O'Neill said that Optus had left the door open to a basic hack. Prime Minister Anthony Albanese said that Optus had to foot the bill for people wanting replacement passports. Combined with the cost of replacing licenses, it's expected Optus will have to fork out more than $1 billion, which is just incredible. The AFP is involved, obviously trying to find the hacker, but also Operation Guardian to help protect those whose details were stolen. The lawyers are circling the likelihood of class actions against Optus. So many angles to this. It is a really, really big story still.
Sure is.
All right, most remarkable. Can I nominate one for this?
Sure.
For me, it's the fact that after 2.5 years of public health orders and isolation rules, COVID cases will no longer be required to isolate at home. It recently changed from 7 days to 5. Now it's 0. Well, it will be in a couple of weeks. National Cabinet made the decision on Friday following a push by New South Wales Premier Dominic Perrottet. The AMA was very much opposed to it, warning of a spike in cases. Chief Medical Officer Paul Kelly said, though, that removing the isolation requirement at this time is reasonable. We will see future peaks, he says, and the advice may change. Pandemic leave payments are also set to end. A few exceptions, of course, high-risk settings like aged care, but for the most part, from October 14, the responsibility shifts to people who tested positive to just stay home without an order forcing them to. Remarkable.
It is remarkable. Look, the most remarkable story for me this week was the incredible push along renewable energy received. Number one, AGL Australia will close the country's biggest carbon-emitting power plant, the Loy Yang A plant in Victoria. It provides about 30% of that state's electricity. Well, it's going to be closed by 2035 as a result of unremitting shareholder pressure on AGL. Number two, the Queensland government said it will stop coal-fired generation in the state by 2035. It's going to spend about $60 billion over 10 years in transmission infrastructure and renewables. Of course, New South Wales has already announced the $32 million spend over 8 years for energy infrastructure. Victoria is spending $19 billion over 10 years for wind farms. Number three, we had the government's National Electric Vehicle Strategy discussion paper talking about building electric vehicles in Australia. Wow. Not sure what's in the water this week, but suddenly we all want renewables. A remarkable week for that sector.
That is incredible. What was the sleeper story for you, Sean?
Look, it's a sleeper because just unless you listen to Fear and Greed, you probably don't know about it. The US Securities and Exchange Commission, so that's the regulator, has fined 16 big finance firms, think Barclays, UBS, Goldman Sachs, Morgan Stanley, etc. Huge amounts of money, a combined $1.1 billion for failing to maintain and preserve electronic communications. So why do we care? Because what people inside the banks were doing was pretty normal to most of us. They were just having discussions about clients via text or WhatsApp, a process that's been going on pretty much in every organisation I've worked in, but people haven't recorded them outside those message services. And under SEC rules, the majority of conversations about clients need to be preserved. Can you imagine the potential ramifications for anyone operating in the US, including Australian firms, if that ruling flows through, everything we do could change. The way we work and communicate at work may change totally. A big sleeper story.
Yeah, that is a big one. Favourite story of the week, Sean? I reckon we could be aligned on this because we both love space and we both love stories about this kind of thing.
I'm with you. Go for it.
Early this week, we saw NASA successfully smash a spacecraft into an asteroid. We won't know for a couple of months, really, whether it was enough to kind of move it out of its orbit, which will kind of indicate whether it was a success or not. But what an incredible achievement, regardless. When you consider these stats, the spacecraft travelled 7 million miles or so to get to the asteroid. When it collided, it was moving at about 22,500 kilometres per hour. And after all that, it hit just 17 metres from its target. I think that's remarkable. It's the first ever attempt by humanity to move another body in space, preparation for something that we hope will never happen, with an asteroid kind of cruising directly for Earth. Some incredible pictures came out in the last few days from the Hubble Space Telescope and the James Webb Space Telescope. Just the scale of this story and the fact that they got so close to the target just makes it my favourite story of the week.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one.
All right, there we go. 5 minutes and pretty much everything you need to know in the world of business. Thank you very much, Sean.
Thank you, Michael.
We'll be back on Monday morning with the top 5 business stories in 5 minutes. I'm Michael Thompson, and this is the Fast 5 by Fear and Greed.